Have you ever felt the pain of being misunderstood, of being judged for something you never said or did? Maybe it was a quiet moment that people interpreted as arrogance, or a kind gesture that was twisted into manipulation. Maybe you were blamed for an outcome you had no control over. In that moment, your heart ached. You wanted to speak. You wanted to scream your truth. You wanted the world to know what really happened. But something inside you, a whisper of faith, told you to stay silent, to hold your tongue, to wait. And that waiting wasn't weakness. It was trust. It was faith in Allah Almighty, the one who sees what no eye can see, hears what no ear can hear, and understands what no soul will ever comprehend. The world teaches us to speak up, to explain, to argue. But the Quran teaches us something deeper, to surrender to the will of Allah Almighty when the heart is pure. Not every insult deserves a reply. Not every false accusation requires a defense. Some battles are not yours to fight. They belong to the one who created you, the one who knows what is hidden in the hearts, the one who promises justice even when the world turns a blind eye. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? To remain silent when everything in you wants to defend yourself, to walk away when your heart wants to shout, to trust Allah Almighty when it feels like the whole world is against you. But my dear brothers and sisters, that is the mark of a believer. Let us look at one of the most powerful examples of this truth. The story of Maryam, the mother of Isa. Jesus be upon him. A woman honored in the Quran, a woman chosen above all others. And yet, she was tested in a way most of us could never imagine. She returned to her people holding a newborn child, with no husband and no explanation. The whispers began, the accusations spread. People pointed fingers and raised their voices. She was alone, surrounded, misunderstood. But she didn't fight back. She didn't argue, she didn't shout. She simply stayed silent. Why? Because Allah Almighty had instructed her to do so. Her silence was obedience. And through her silence, Allah Almighty defended her. The Quran tells us that Maryam said, "Indeed, I have vowed a fast to the most merciful, so I will not speak to any human being today." That was it. No speech, no explanation, just trust. And what happened? The newborn child, Isa, Jesus be upon him, spoke from the cradle. A miracle unfolded, a divine defense that no human voice could match. Her silence became the doorway to the miraculous. Her obedience became the cause of her honor. And her story became a lesson for all of us, that when the world turns against you and your heart remains firm in its sincerity, Allah Almighty will defend you in ways that no voice ever could. Think about that for a moment. The greatest replies in life are not always made with words. Sometimes they're made with patience. Sometimes they're made in silence. Sometimes they're made with tears in sujood, whispered prayers behind closed doors, and quiet trust that says, "Ya Allah, you know," and you are wronged. Especially when that silence is filled with trust. There is no defeat in walking away from slander if you are walking into the arms of Allah Almighty. He is the most just, He is the most merciful. And He never lets truth be buried forever. And if you remain patient and conscious of Allah, their plot will not harm you in the least. Surely Allah is fully aware of what they do. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever remains silent has been saved." Have you ever been hurt by words that weren't true? Have you ever felt the weight of being misunderstood, judged unfairly, or accused without a chance to explain? That ache inside, it's not easy. The mind races, the heart burns, and the soul wants to scream just to be seen and heard. But what if I told you sometimes the strongest response is no response at all? Not because you don't care, not because you give up, but because you've placed your case in the hands of the one who never fails. Allah Almighty sees it all, every whisper, every glance, every unfair word. And when He defends you, no voice on earth can silence that truth. The world may rush to speak, but faith teaches us to pause, to trust, and to let the most merciful take control. We learn this through the powerful story of Maryam, a woman honored in the Quran. Imagine her pain. She returned to her people holding a newborn child, and no one knew the truth. They accused her, they questioned her purity, they doubted her silence. But Maryam didn't shout. She didn't argue. She simply pointed to the child. Why? Because Allah Almighty had commanded her not to speak. Her silence was not fear, it was obedience, it was trust. And from that silence came a miracle. The child spoke. A baby speaking in the cradle, defending the honor of his mother. That was Allah Almighty's reply to the noise. That was divine justice, far beyond what any human defense could offer. This is the lesson. Silence does not mean defeat. When done with sincerity, it can be the loudest form of faith. Sometimes the world tells you to explain yourself, to fight back, to prove your innocence. But the Quran reminds us that if you remain patient and conscious of Allah, their plot will not harm you in the least. Surely Allah is fully aware of what they do. Your silence then is not emptiness. It is filled with trust. It is your statement that you believe Allah Almighty sees what is hidden and will bring the truth to light in His perfect time. Many times in life, we find ourselves in situations where our voice could make things worse, where words would only fan the flames. In those moments, silence is not only wise, it is protective. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us this when he said, whoever remains silent has been saved. Those words are not just advice, they are a shield, a safeguard against regard. What you keep within for the sake of Allah Almighty becomes a form of worship. It is not weakness, it is strength with restraint. Think of the times you've wanted to speak but your heart whispered otherwise. Think of the moments where you were judged unfairly but you chose to walk away rather than argue. Those are not losses, those are signs of maturity. They are signs that your strength comes from above, not from the approval of people. When you respond with silence, while your heart trusts in Allah Almighty's justice, you are walking the path of those who have been elevated by faith. It's not about giving up, it's about handing over your battle to the one who never loses, the one who knows what others hide, the one who knows the intentions behind every action and the truth behind every lie. There's peace in this kind of silence, a silence that doesn't burn with bitterness but rests in contentment, a silence that doesn't seek revenge but seeks closeness to Allah Almighty. Because the moment you surrender your desire to argue and instead raise your hands in prayer, you are stronger than any loud voice. You are saying in something higher, you are saying, my Lord, you know, and that's enough for me. So next time you feel the urge to defend your name, remember Maryam, remember her silence, remember how Allah Almighty defended her with a miracle, and then ask yourself, do you want your words to fight this battle, or do you want Allah Almighty to speak for you? Sometimes people will mistake your silence for fear. They'll think you have nothing to say. They'll assume you're guilty, ashamed, or defeated. But silence is not always a sign of weakness. In fact, in the life of a believer, silence can be the most powerful response. It is the shield of those who know their worth is not measured by noise, but by the one who created them. When you choose not to react, you're not giving up. You are rising above. You are saying, my Lord is enough for me and His knowledge is greater than any judgment people can make. That's not easy. The heart wants to respond. The ego wants to prove itself. But the soul, when connected to Allah Almighty, finds peace in silence. It learns to let go of the need to always be heard and seen, because it is content in being known by the one who sees everything. It takes deep inner strength to hold your tongue when everything inside you wants to speak. It takes wisdom to know that not every battle is worth fighting. And it takes true faith to let Allah Almighty handle what your words cannot fix. You are not being silent because you have no answer. You are being silent because your answer is patience. You are not walking away because you're weak. You are walking away because your peace matters more than your pride. The world sees silence as defeat. But in the eyes of Allah Almighty, silence can be a sign of deep spiritual maturity. You are not ignoring the pain. You are transforming it into prayer. And that is a strength very few can understand. Allah Almighty describes the true servants of the Most Merciful in the Quran with words that teach us how to carry ourselves when others test us. He says, they are those who walk upon the earth with humility, and when the ignorant speak to them, they respond with words of peace. This is not passivity, it's power under control. It's a heart that refuses to be dragged into arguments that only steal your peace. It's a mind that remembers that the reward from Allah Almighty is greater than any moment of being right in front of people. It's a soul that knows that pleasing your Creator is far more important than proving yourself to the creation. There is something beautiful in watching a believer stay calm while being attacked. There is something powerful in witnessing someone hold their tongue while their character is being questioned. That calmness, that patience, that quiet strength, it does not come from the self, it comes from above. It comes from a place of trust that knows Allah Almighty is never unaware. When you choose not to speak, not because you're afraid, but because you want to preserve your faith, that silence becomes your act of worship. It is your way of saying, Ya Allah, I leave this matter to you. That is not giving up. That is winning a greater battle, the one against your own ego. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said that whoever believes in Allah Almighty and the last day should speak good or remain silent. That hadith is a reminder that silence, when chosen with purpose, is not empty. It's filled with faith. Sometimes silence is kinder than speaking. Sometimes it protects you from hurting others, and sometimes it protects you from saying something you regret. In a world that pushes us to react instantly, to respond loudly, to defend constantly, silence becomes rare, and that makes it even more powerful. A heart that trusts does not need to shout. A soul that surrenders does not need to prove. When you carry your pain to Allah Almighty instead of people, you are carrying it to the only one who can truly heal it. So if today you find yourself misunderstood, misjudged, or accused unfairly, remember this: your silence is not a void. It is filled with the presence of Allah Almighty. It is filled with His knowledge, His justice, and His mercy. Do not underestimate what He can do when you leave the matter to Him. What people say about you may echo for a while, but the truth that Allah Almighty holds will last forever. Walk away with dignity, let go with grace, and let Allah write your reply. Have you ever tried to explain yourself only to realize that no one was really listening? Have you felt that ache when people twist your words, question your actions, or judge your silence as guilt? It's a painful place to be, knowing the truth deep within your soul, but watching others speak over it with assumptions and whispers. That kind of loneliness can feel heavy. It can make you want to fight back, to clarify, to prove yourself. But sometimes the more you speak, the more people misunderstand. And in those moments, Allah Almighty invites you to rise above it all. Not with loud arguments, but with silent trust. Not with anger, but with calm surrender. When people misjudge you, He knows them in full. And when your silence is misunderstood by the world, it is honored by the heavens. There is a sacred strength in knowing that Allah Almighty is your witness. The one who knows what's in your heart. The one who saw the tears you never spoke of. The one who was aware of your struggle even before you could describe it. That kind of reassurance changes how you respond. It helps you carry the pain without letting it crush you. It reminds you that your worth is not dependent on how people perceive you, but on how your Lord sees you. And He sees you through the lens of mercy, with knowledge deeper than any judgment and love greater than any rejection. That's why you don't always have to explain yourself to everyone. Some people are not ready to understand, but Allah Almighty already knows, and He is enough. In the story of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, we see this reality unfold. He was innocent yet accused, pure yet imprisoned, trustworthy yet betrayed, and through it all, he remained silent about his pain. He didn't go from person to person defending his name. He didn't let the lies shape his heart. He turned to Allah Almighty and he waited. And when the time was right, Allah cleared his name in a way no argument ever could. He was not only proven innocent, he was honored, he was raised, he was made a leader. That is what happens when you trust the plan of the most merciful more than the opinions of people. Allah sees the harm that comes your way, and He counts every ounce of your patience. Nothing is ever lost with it. The Quran reminds us so beautifully that Allah Almighty is never unaware of what is hidden. He knows what is within the hearts. When others misread you, He reads you correctly. When your heart is breaking from injustice, He records that pain and promises a reward that will erase the bitterness. So don't be discouraged if people get your story wrong. Let them speak. Let them assume, let them judge. Your response is not for them, it is for Allah. You're not seeking their understanding, you're seeking His approval. And His approval is not found in noise, but in sincerity. It's found in restraint, in prayer, and in the quiet dignity of letting your character speak louder than your words. There will be days when even those you love misinterpret your silence. When people who should know your heart begin to doubt it, and that hurts more than anything else. But even then, Allah Almighty is with you. He will never misread your intentions. He will never forget your struggle. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Indeed, Allah does not look at your appearance or your wealth, but He looks at your hearts and your deed. What matters most is not how you are seen by others, but how you are known by your Creator. When He sees you holding your tongue for His sake, He writes it down. When He sees you staying silent to avoid conflict, He counts it as wisdom. When He sees your tears falling in prayer instead of shouting in anger, He records it as strength." So the next time your silence is taken the wrong way, Don't rush to explain. Instead, whisper a prayer. Say, Ya Allah, you know the truth. Let that be enough for your heart. You're not walking alone. Your patience is not wasted. Your silence is not empty. It is being filled with blessings you cannot yet see. And when the time is right, Allah Almighty will reveal your truth in a way that no voice ever could. Until then, walk with quiet confidence. Know that your worth is not up for debate. It was already written by the one who made you. And He, the most just, will never let your silence go unnoticed. There's a moment in every argument where you feel it, the heat rising. The urge to speak back, to defend, to make your voice the loudest in the room. Your heart beats faster. Your mind starts forming sentences, and deep inside, your pride starts whispering, don't stay quiet. Say something, show him who you are. But that's the test. That's the moment where silence becomes more powerful than speech. Because true strength isn't in reacting, it's in restraining. It's in knowing that your peace is more precious than being right. That your connection with Allah Almighty is more valuable than a moment of pride. When you choose peace over argument, when you choose silence over ego, you are not losing. You're protecting your soul from damage. You're guarding your heart from regret. Many relationships have been destroyed, not because of actions, but because of words. Words spoken in anger, in haste, without thinking. Words that left wounds far deeper than any wound on the body. And once they are spoken, you cannot take them back. That's why our Prophet Muhammad, be upon him, gave us a simple rule. He said, whoever believes in Allah Almighty and the last day should speak good or remain silent. This is not just advice, it is a filter, a shield, a guide for every conversation, every disagreement, every heated moment. If your words cannot bring peace, then silence is better. If your reply cannot heal, then don't let it harm. Sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. We often think that walking away from conflict means we've lost, that staying silent means we're weak. But in reality, it takes far more courage to hold your tongue than to release it. It takes far more wisdom to pause than to speak without thought. The Quran teaches us that when the ignorant address the believers with harsh words, they respond with peace, not because they cannot argue. They choose to rise above. They understand that not every battle is worth fighting. Some are distractions. Some are traps for the ego. Some are tests, not of your intelligence, but of your patience. Think about the last time you said something in anger. Did it fix the problem or did it make things worse? Did it bring calm or did it fuel the fire? Words are not just sounds, they are tools. They can build or they can destroy. When your heart is full of pain, it becomes even more dangerous to speak because your words are now shaped by hurt, not healing. That is when silence becomes an act of wisdom. An act of worship. You are saying, Ya Allah, protect me from myself. And that is not a small prayer. It is a powerful surrender. Imagine if we used silence as a form of strength in our homes, in our friendships, in our communities. Imagine if in the heat of conflict we paused instead of attacked. If we breathed instead of blamed. How many hearts could we protect? How many relationships could we preserve? How many regrets could we avoid? This is the beauty of restraint. It gives you time to reflect. It allows space for mercy. And most importantly, it keeps your heart soft. Because a heart hardened by pride cannot carry peace. But a heart that submits to Allah Almighty, even in moments of tension, becomes a place of tranquility. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak, and there is greatness in knowing when not to. Sometimes the person who walks away is stronger than the one who stays to argue. Because walking away is not running. It is a powerful message that says, I don't need to fight you. I trust my Lord to handle what I cannot. So the next time your pride rises, pause. The next time your voice wants to shout, breathe. The next time someone's words try to pull you down, remember, silence can be your shield. And when that silence is filled with faith, it becomes a ladder that raises you closer to Allah Almighty while the noise fades behind you. Let your character be your reply, let your peace be your proof, and let your silence echo louder than any argument ever could. There is a kind of pain that doesn't come from what you hear directly, but from what you hear about yourself. Words spoken in rooms you were never in, assumptions made without asking, false stories told by people you trusted, and suddenly your character is being questioned by those who never gave you a chance to explain. It hurts. Because you wonder, why would they say that? Why didn't they come to me first? And worse, you wonder how many people believed it. You feel powerless, you feel betrayed. But my dear brothers and sisters, you are not powerless. You are never helpless. Not when Allah Almighty is your witness. When people backbite you, they think they are harming you, but in reality they are only piling burdens upon their own souls. The Quran describes backbiting as something so serious, it is compared to eating the flesh of your dead brother. That is how disgusting and destructive it is. So when someone talks behind your back, remind yourself, you may be in pain, but they are in danger. You may be misunderstood for a while. You may feel the sting of their words now, but they will face the consequences later. And that knowledge should give you peace. Not because you want revenge, but because you trust Allah Almighty to bring balance where the world brings injustice. In moments like these, the urge to speak up can be overwhelming. You want to defend your name, correct the lies, set the record straight, but sometimes chasing rumors only gives them more power. Trying to explain yourself to people who don't want to understand will only exhaust your heart. And that's where your silence becomes your shield, because it says, I trust Allah Almighty to defend me better than I can defend myself. And He will, just like He did for Maryam, just like He did for Yusuf, just like He has done for countless believers who were wronged but stayed patient. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, lived through this pain as well. He was called names, mocked and accused of being a liar, a madman, a magician. And through it all, he showed us the path of dignity. He taught us that silence in the face of slander is not weakness, it is strength. He reminded us that those who spread lies are only revealing the state of their own hearts. And he guided us to seek refuge in Allah Almighty, not in the approval of people, because at the end of the day, it is not the voice of the people that decides your worth, it is the sight of your Lord that matters most. When someone speaks ill of you behind your back, pause and remember what really matters. Their words cannot change who you are. Their opinions cannot rewrite your intentions. What Allah Almighty knows about you is far greater than what anyone else assumes. He sees your sincerity. He hears your quiet prayers. And He never allows injustice to go unresolved. You don't need to attend every battle you're invited to. You don't need to correct every lie that spreads. Your conscience is clear, your heart is known, and that is enough. The next time a rumor reaches your ears or someone's betrayal comes to light, say nothing but say everything to Allah Almighty. Raise your hands and whisper, Ya Allah, you know, you saw, you heard, and you are sufficient for me. That prayer is more powerful than 1,000 explanations. That silence filled with faith is louder than any defense. And that moment becomes your moment of strength, because you've chosen patience, you've chosen submission, you've chosen to walk away with peace instead of fighting with pride. You don't have to fight fire with fire. Let them talk, let them assume, let them believe what they want. Your job is not to control their thoughts. Your job is to protect your own soul. And if they never come around, if they never apologize, if they continue to speak, leave them to Allah Almighty. He is the most just, He is the most merciful, and He never forgets. Have you ever felt like the world is closing in around you? Like every door you once trusted has now been shut. People walk away, your name is dragged through the dirt, and nothing you say seems to matter anymore. You begin to wonder, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? It feels like you're being buried slowly, painfully, without... What if Allah Almighty is planting you? There is a difference. A seed is also covered by soil. It is also pushed into the darkness. It too feels the pressure from all sides. But that darkness is not its grave, it's its beginning. That pressure is not its end, it's its preparation. And that silence, that stillness is not emptiness. It's the moment right before growth. Maybe Allah Almighty is growing you in a way no one can see yet. Maybe the hurt is the soil, the tears are the rain, and the silence is the space where roots form. Because roots need darkness. Strength is built in secret. And the most beautiful things begin in places no one watches. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was pushed out of his own city, mocked by his own people, and faced betrayal from those he loved. But every rejection, every insult, every painful silence, it was not the end. It was the preparation. The mission didn't stop, it grew. And today, millions across the world follow the very message that people once tried to silence. That's what Allah Almighty does when you put your trust in Him. He takes your silence and turns it into strength. He takes your pain and turns it into purpose. And He takes what looked like your ending and turns it into a new beginning. In the Quran, Allah reminds us that He brings the living out of the dead, and He brings light from the darkest of places. That means no moment is wasted, no pain is purposeless, and no season of silence is without meaning. What people think is your downfall may be the exact place where Allah Almighty is building your future. But you must trust the process. You must believe that even when no one sees your growth, Allah does. Even when nothing feels like it's changing on the outside, your soul is being nurtured on the inside. When a seed breaks open underground, it's painful, it's messy, it's hidden. But it's necessary, because unless it breaks, it cannot rise. Unless it's pushed, it cannot reach the surface. And unless it trusts the one who planted it, it will never see the light. The same is true for you. Maybe Allah Almighty is allowing the darkness to teach you reliance. Maybe He's removing people to bring you closer to Him. Maybe He's closing every door so you finally kneeled at the only door that truly opens, the door of prayer. And in that moment of silence where no one sees your struggle, Allah is watching every step. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that no hardship befalls a believer except that Allah Almighty uses it to raise their rank or erase their sins. So what looks like a setback may be your spiritual elevation. What looks like punishment may be protection. What looks like rejection may be redirection. And what sounds like silence from Allah Almighty may be Him quietly preparing something far greater than you asked for. So don't fear the dark seasons. Don't rush to escape them. Sit with them, breathe in them and say, Ya Allah, if this is where You've placed me, then let me grow here. That is faith, that is surrender. That is the trust that transforms your silence into a miracle. And when Allah Almighty brings you out of that place, when He allows your roots to break the soil, when He allows your heart to bloom, you will look back and realize the silence wasn't your enemy. It was your womb. It was the place where strength was born. And everything that tried to bury you, it actually helped you grow. There will be days when the words of people weigh heavier than any physical burden. Days when you've been wronged, misunderstood, insulted, and your heart quietly breaks. You feel like speaking would only add to the chaos, so you hold it in. And in that silence you feel lonely, maybe even defeated. But that is the moment of choice. Do you speak to the world or do you speak to your Lord? The most powerful thing a believer can do when the noise becomes too loud is to fall into sujood. Because sujood is where the heart speaks without needing words. It is where your silence finds a voice. It is where your soul feels seen by the one who understands everything. There is something sacred about lowering your forehead to the ground, not in defeat but in dignity. You are not giving up, you are rising. Because when you prostrate to Allah Almighty, your status is elevated. When you cry before Him, He listens. When you hold back your tongue from anger and instead release your tears in prayer, He records that moment as an act of strength. And the healing that comes in sujood is deeper than anything the world can offer. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the closest a servant is to his Lord is when he is in sujood. So why seek comfort in explanations when you can find it in that close? When you are hurt by someone you trusted, betrayed by someone you loved, or shamed by someone who doesn't even know your heart, go to sujood, speak to the one who never misjudges, complain to Him, weep to Him, let the ground hold your pain so your heart can begin to heal. Because while people may walk away, Allah Almighty never does. He is the one who waits for your return. He is the one who sees your tears before they fall. And when your silence is paired with sincere prayer, it becomes a force no lie can destroy. There's no need to force people to understand your intentions. No need to chase every rumor or respond to every accusation. You were not created to win people's approval. You were created to worship Allah Almighty. And when that becomes your focus, everything else becomes smaller. Their words lose power. Their assumptions lose weight. And your heart regains peace. Because you realize your silence is not weakness. It is the strength of a servant who trusts his Lord more than he trusts the voices around him. The Quran tells us that Allah Almighty is with those who are patient. And patience is not just about waiting. It's about restraining your tongue when you could speak, controlling your anger when you could fight, and trusting your Lord when your heart is breaking. That is not easy. But it is the path of the righteous. It is the choice of those who know that Allah sees the unseen and hears what is hidden. Every moment of restraint is recorded. Every silent tear is witnessed. And every pain endured with patience becomes a step closer to forgiveness and paradise. Think of all the times you chose to stay silent for the sake of peace. all the moments you chose to walk away from conflict, all the times you bit your tongue even when you knew you were right, those were not empty acts. They were investments in your soul. They were silent sermons. They were your way of saying, Ya Allah, I leave this matter to you. And He never wastes those moments. He rewards them. He multiplies them. He honors them in ways you will see either in this world or far better in the hereafter. The next time you are falsely judged, the next time you are hurt by someone's words or left out or slandered, don't rush to defend yourself. Don't rush to prove them wrong. Instead, raise your hands. Go into shuddat, say nothing to the world, but say everything to Allah Almighty, because He is the best of defenders. He is the most just. And when He defends you, no one can bring you down. Your silence in that moment becomes your shield, and your prayer becomes your strength. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. Your story is not over. And the one writing your story is the one who knows you best. So stay silent, not because you are defeated, but because you are defended. And when you fall in sujud, know that you have not fallen, you have risen.